Resolution almost here in the Kevin Durant situation. We've got three finalists left in the sweepstakes to trade for Sunstar Kevin Durant. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Right now, about 70% of you watching this, you're not subscribed. Let's fix that. Hit the subscribe button. Joining me is Donnie Freeman. Donnie, I'm ready. We've been building up to this Kevin Durant trade. We talked about it a little bit. The Giannis Antetokounmpo news came out this morning, and I think now teams are really going all in at KD, and it sounds like this could be done sooner rather than later.
Yeah, the KD thing is one that I think both parties involved need to get done sooner than later so they can kind of figure out what they're doing around the draft if they've got a, pick or something like that. But yeah, where do you think KD's going to wind up though?
So these are the three finalists, according to Shams Charania. It's the Heat, the Rockets, and the Wolves. Interesting, no San Antonio Spurs. I'm going to stick with the team that I've said makes the most sense, the team that was absolutely screaming for a Kevin Durant-style player in the playoffs, and that's the Houston Rockets. They need somebody who can create in the half court. I know they've had all their comments about their young core and their timeline and all that stuff, but my God, they were a Kevin Durant style player. Doesn't even have to be his quite level, but a Kevin Durant away from, I think, advancing into the playoffs and maybe making a real run. I think the Rockets, I'm not buying all the we're going to stick with all the young guys thing. I think the Rockets make a lot of sense. You can't count out the Heat or the Wolves, though. The Wolves reportedly had a lot of interest at the trade deadline, and Miami is in the mix for every single star. But I still think the Rockets make the most sense. Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I do think he's going to wind up on the Rockets, and they make a lot of sense. I like the fit on the Timberwolves too, to an extent, but I think they need to retool some of the other parts of the roster. Like, I don't think you can have, him out there with Conley. I don't know if that works too great. So I'd have to figure that out. But the Heat are in this, and I'm like, I can see it just because they're in everything. But like for KD, I can't imagine that he's trying to force his way to the Heat, but maybe he is. They're the only Eastern team here, right?
Unless, that could just be he really wants to go east and to an easier path to the conference finals. That could be a thing. John Gambadoro has been doing a great job covering this whole situation from the Phoenix side of things. And yesterday he was saying it wasn't close at this point, but he did expect resolution maybe this coming week, like next week. Now Shams Charania is saying it could be this weekend. And the fact that all three teams that are still left are submitting final offers, that tells you, this could be done Saturday, could be done Sunday if it's truly final offers, and then the Suns are going to have to make their decision. So one of the things that's noteworthy here in all this, though, is that the Suns want this done before the draft. And to me, that tells you that they probably are targeting draft compensation in this year's draft coming to them in any kind of a deal. And so you look at what these teams have, the 17th pick with the Minnesota Timberwolves, that could potentially be in play. The 20th pick with the Miami Heat, that could be something that they could certainly look at as well. And then we know Houston has got that 10th pick. That would have to be enticing. And if I'm Houston, I'm willing to give that up because the third pick in last year's draft, Reed Shepherd, couldn't even get into the rotation. What's the likelihood, given how good the Houston Rockets are, that they can take the 10th pick and find somebody that they're going to actually play this season? Probably not very. So if you can turn that into Kevin Durant with obviously some other pieces going out, I think that makes a lot of sense. But the fact that the Suns want this done prior to the draft, that tells you we're probably looking at draft capital for this year's draft that will be involved in a Kevin Durant trade.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would have to imagine that they're trying pretty hard to get to number 10. They want to get that and get that pick, all that.
Ironically, it's their own pick.
It's their own.
Getting back.
They want it back. So they worked hard for it last year, right? Trying to get number 10. But in all seriousness, I think that would make the most sense for them overall. When I was looking at their roster, though, it looked like maybe you have to flip somebody like a Jalen Green because his contract balloons. But unless it's Fred and filler, it's not a lot of clean ways to trade without giving up some of the young talent that you may not want to.
Well, yeah, let's talk about that. What these other teams, because they're going to have to package together some salaries. Yeah. What these teams could put together. Is this like
a 3-team trade or something? Or
I think it probably would wind up being some type of 3-team trade, which means there's probably another team that would be involved, and I would imagine that'll be something similar to like what the Lakers and the Mavs had with the Utah Jazz, where maybe the third team didn't really know all the details of the trade, but knew they were going to be a dumping ground for some salaries. And yes, Danny Ainge probably was not thrilled with getting Luka to the Lakers in that situation. But I would imagine the Suns have a third team on standby as a team that's willing to, for compensation, accept some players. Maybe a team like the Brooklyn Nets, who have a ton of cap space to play with, they might make a lot of sense. But we look at the Houston Rockets in terms of stacking up salaries. They pushed back the decision date on Fred VanVleet's team option specifically for situations like this. So they could just pick up VanVleet's team option and then put him in the trade, and off you go. I mean, Fred VanVleet and Jock Landale, and that's it. There you've got your salary matching effectively if you're the Houston Rockets. Now, we've seen some reports, though, that the Suns, they would want obviously more than that. Could it be a Jalen Green involved in the trade? Could it be Jalen Green? I believe there was some reporting about Jalen Green and Jabari Smith Jr. What is that going too far? If you're Houston, would you be willing to give up Green, Jabari Smith, and 10 for Kevin Durant?
That's exactly, and you'd need a little bit more in there because the salary, right? But like that's exactly what I said when I did this a video on this topic. I think yesterday, I was like, it's just maybe asking for just a little too much. I also don't love the fit for the backcourt, with Booker and Green.
Sure,
but I mean, maybe they can make it work. Crazier things have happened, but yeah, I don't know. It's asking for quite a bit there. But if you felt like they weren't good enough and Kevin Durant can give you more than what they did, and you feel like your title window is right now, like literally now, then I can see it, I guess.
Or perhaps you could get a third team involved, and that third team could be getting Jalen Green and then sending stuff to the Phoenix Suns in exchange for that. But the Rockets, they do have salaries they can put in. There's a question of how far they would be willing to go with some of their younger players in exchange for Kevin Durant. But again, I thought their team was a Kevin Durant away from really making a run last year. Jumping over to the East, and we look at the Miami Heat, these contracts they could put together. Andrew Wiggins makes some sense as a target for Phoenix, particularly a Suns team that doesn't have a whole lot of incentive to tank and lose games or anything like that. They're going to want to continue to win around Devin Booker. So getting some guys that can help you out. Andrew Wiggins would be an attractive option in that regard. Duncan Robinson is expected to pick up his option. Could you use him as a $20 million expiring? Terry Rozier, $26 million expiring. The Miami Heat have plenty of expiring salaries they could put into a trade. The question then becomes, can you plus that up? There was a rumor out this morning that Kel'el Ware is somebody the Miami Heat would be very reluctant to throw in. I would imagine some of that final offer language is the Suns hoping to see Kel'el Ware added. The Suns we know are after a center. I like Kel'el Ware a lot, and if I'm Phoenix, I'd be really thrilled to get him in this trade.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Getting him would be a huge get, I think. And yeah, the Miami Heat shouldn't want to put him in the deal. So, but just with them, they've got, like you were saying, a lot of salaries that they can put together to make something work because they don't really have like that super expensive or, they got a lot of mid-tier salaries here. But I just wonder, like I said, maybe it's because they're the East, they're sunny, all that stuff. Like, why Miami in particular?
Well, yeah, I mean, the weather certainly helps, right? But let's say if you are Kevin Durant and you say, okay, it's Andrew Wiggins, let's call it Andrew Wiggins, Terry Rozier, and Kel'el Ware. So you're left with Bam. Tyler Hero's still there. You're Kevin Durant. You're coming in. You've got a shooter in Duncan Robinson. Kyle Anderson's a good role player. Haywood Highsmith can do some things. Nikola Jovic is a guy that I like a lot as a young player. Yeah, you still have Jaime Jaquez. Yes, you gave up, let's say you gave up Kel'el Ware in the deal. There's some interesting pieces there in Miami, and in a wide open Eastern Conference. Kevin Durant may look at it and say, you know what, especially if we can get we are under the first apron, maybe we could be a player out there with the tax pyramid level. I don't know, like you squint and there's a decent roster there in Miami. I think I could argue a big three of Hero, Bam, and KD fits better than a big three of Booker, KD, and Bradley Beal. So there's that as well.
Yeah. Well, they're all pretty different there in Miami if they were to put those three together. So that makes sense. Yeah, I guess if you're going to look at it through that lens, I mean, I guess it makes sense. Just to me, for KD, like if he's going somewhere, I don't know what the logic is. Like at this point, isn't he just looking to try to get some rings? And if he's trying to get a ring, I think this is probably the worst destination to go to. Even if you want to look at it through that lens, they're still going to have to make it all the way through the East and then play a juggernaut Western team. Like I don't see it. So maybe, he winds up here and that's good for him optic wise. But aside from that, I would be trying to target like a team that's just legit on the door of a championship.
If the goal is a wing or a ring, a ring for a wing, if the goal is a ring, is Minnesota the best fit then?
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, like, I think Minnesota is also interesting because he doesn't have the same, load here defensively. But I
Mhm.
think it also depends on what you do with those bigs, because you're gonna probably have to trade a Randall or a Gobert or something like that to get this to work.
Yeah, the challenge for Minnesota is they're so tight against the aprons already. They have
Yeah.
essentially no room right now under the first tier apron. You've got Naz Reid, who's probably going to get paid this summer. You have Julius Randle. You got to figure out what you're going to do with him. They've already said Jaden McDaniels would not be part of the trade. I've seen that be thrown out there. So then getting there money wise, like, are we assuming Julius Randle is going to opt in
I'm
and he
sure
could
he's
get traded to Phoenix? Maybe he opts in and then signs an extension or something like that with the Suns. And then are you able to stack up? Is it Julius Randle? Is it both Randle and Dante DiVincenzo, the pieces they got from the Knicks? Is it Randle, the expiring contract of Mike Conley or something? Like, it's much more complicated, I think, salary wise for the Wolves to get there than the
Yeah.
other two finalist teams with the Heat and the Rockets.
Yeah, they tried really hard at the deadline as well, but I don't know if they would want to give up Dante. I don't know if they would do Conley like that. The way that the team loves him, was trying to, win for him and all that stuff. It would kind of be a little bit of sour grapes if they just traded him outright, and that's how he ends his career. But I don't know. So if it's not for one of the bigs on this roster, it's just kind of hard for them, like you said. But I think he'd fit really good here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think he absolutely can. Certainly gives them another scoring threat. Somebody that doesn't, so that Anthony Edwards doesn't have to create everything on the offensive end. So, look, Kevin Durant is an amazing player. He's a great fit in a lot of places. I still think this is about Houston and getting Houston to pony up the best offer that they can. But you can never count on Miami. And given the motivation that we've seen from Minnesota already pursuing Kevin Durant at the trade deadline this last year, I'm not counting out any of those parties. But the bottom line, the most important thing is the Kevin Durant situation looks like it could come to a conclusion as soon as this weekend. And now just 3 teams left involved. So everybody let us know in the comment section which of the 3 remaining teams in the Kevin Durant Derby should be the team to land KD. Is it Miami, Minnesota, or Houston? Let us know in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe right here to the channel. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.